Welcome, this is That Japanese Thing. My name is Christopher. Today we're talking about Bullet Train, a fake Japanese movie that we watched on Yesh's couch a few days ago. Welcome Yesh, welcome Dylan. How you guys doing?
Hello, hello.
Hello, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Today didn't go horribly actually. I thought it would be worse.
Victory!
So yeah, excellent. How about you guys? What you been doing?
I was working on a little homemade project that actually got you guys to help me with when you came to
Oh, the
visit.
LED lights, yeah.
The LED lights. I had to put them back up and run the wires with some masking tape so that they don't stick out from my wall as much. Years of computer cable routing have taught me how to hide wires.
Yep.
So I basically put that to use with running the power. I have encountered a problem with it, but it's something that I can resolve. But long story short, I did some house improvement, kind of, in a weird way.
Cool.
Life skills.
Indeed. But before that, let's talk about some Japanese news. I've got just two things. One of which I'm more excited about than I should be, but let's talk about the Japanese economy before that. So, I think someone has just sort of realized at the BBC that if the yen is worth, say, 30% less than it used to be, that also means the Japanese economy has 30% less value relative to the dollar than it used to be. And I don't know, they're somewhat concerned about that. But I've been hearing a lot of people in Japan and NHK talking about just how good it's going to be for tourism and for other industries. I mean, Japan's export industry isn't what it used to be, but it will be good for the various exports that they do have, and especially for like cultural exports and things like anime and novels and such. And yeah, I mean, it kind of looks like it's gonna stick, this whole yen falling for a while. So I think before prices catch up to what they would be relative to the dollar with, exchange rates and such, people should probably take advantage of that. If, for example, you really wanted some piece of Japanese hardware like a PlayStation or something, it might actually just be worth buying it in Japan and having it shipped to you, rather than buying like the US UK variant that you have in your region. But yeah, it's positives, negatives there. I don't really know if it's gonna go back to the way it was at this point, but that's fine. Doesn't need to. And then the thing that I'm really excited about is that Bookwalker Global has launched a vertical scrolling comic book format.
Reader.
It's so much easier to read.
It is.
That way. If you don't know what I'm talking about, if you read on a Kindle like I do, or in a Kindle app anyway, most books, most English books anyway, have the ability just to scroll down the whole book as if it's one document. You don't have to flip pages. You don't have to do any of that sort of stuff. It's just very, very quick and easy to read that way. And comic books haven't really caught up to that. I mean, a lot of the ways to digitally read comic books is really terrible.
There are some amazing comic book readers, but they are all coincidentally not run by any Japanese company.
Yeah, I mean, for Western comics, it's just a standard format, so you can import them if you have control over that. But say, for example, you don't have control over what app you're using to read it. Say you're buying it on Amazon and reading it on Kindle. Then it's really frustrating because most of their image-based books, comic books, manga and such is all just one page at a time.
And the page loader is very slow and very janky on mobile.
Another thing I kind of that irritates me is also the text is not real text. Everything's just an image. So you couldn't highlight words on the page and copy them if you wanted to do that, for example. With this, you should be able to do that. So it's just gonna make reading manga like really easy and fun and not a
Significantly
pain in the
easier.
butt.
I will say all Korean manhwa readers
Yes.
go top to bottom, have incredible clarity, have modification for if you're reading on mobile or on desktop
Yes.
to make it easier to use both of those profiles.
I mean,
It's just hundreds of it's a common complaint amongst anime slash manga readers that the official Japanese options are horrific and unfriendly.
one assumes that the Koreans aren't, faxing in one page at a time to the publisher, and then that's why they can use that feature.
If they can publish it in a book as a complete comic, they can put it on the internet as a complete comic.
Yeah. You would think so. You would think so. I mean, it's not even really it shouldn't really even be that difficult to do.
It isn't. It
No.
really isn't.
All you need to do is just change the orientation of the page.
And also make the reader recognize touch format. That's all.
Yeah.
It's not difficult. These are libraries that exist.
And hopefully, like, all comics and manga will be like this. So they started the service in Kadokawa, started the service in Japan. Obviously, Bookwalker is their thing. In August of last year, 2021, and now it's coming to the international Bookwalker website.
Community.
So yeah, unfortunately, it's only for 24 titles currently. And I don't really understand why that is, but hopefully it'll come to the rest of things pretty soon. All right, that's me. What do you guys have?
I have that an earthquake hit Mie, but it had an unusual characteristic in that the seismic waves traveled extremely far, relatively speaking.
Right.
It was felt in Ibaraki and Fukushima, quite spread apart locations. It was a 6.1 magnitude, which is significant, but not that significant.
Right.
But the spread of it was extremely wide, considering the size of Japan.
Okay. I mean, how hard? Well, do you know how tough an earthquake needs to be to topple buildings, for example? Would that do it?
So, so this is unfortunate. I've got stats for Tokyo. I can't
Right.
say that that's Japan. But I would assume that the Japanese building style would be pretty standardized, maybe? I know in Tokyo, an 8 will topple their tall buildings, and a 7 can topple some of their older
Houses
single
and
stories.
such, yeah.
But all of the bigger constructions are built to withstand up to an 8 pretty okay.
Right.
All the buildings, obviously.
Probably for like any other country, 6 is probably a bigger deal than it would be for Japan.
I
who's
know
quite
that for
well
our
prepared
country
it.
in particular, a 5 can knock stuff off the edges and the roof.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I remember.
We'd have bridges starting to fail, I think.
Yeah, bridges would also be a significant issue. But Japan has, as part of their large building standard, that an 8 is required, which is actually a very significant earthquake. An
Yes.
8 is huge.
I mean, even some of the more energetic earthquakes that have devastated Tokyo haven't actually been 8s. So, yeah, 8 is pretty high. And like the earthquake
Anything below
scale
will
is
still do
a
damage.
is an exponential scale, I believe, right?
Yes, it is an exponential
So
scale.
every number is double the last number at least in terms of severity.
So pure power, yeah.
Yeah. Anything else?
No, the other story I have is extremely sad, so I'm going to skip it.
Cool. Dylan.
A wise choice. I don't find these stories sad, but some people might. So here we go. Japan's developing some unmanned underwater vehicles to assist in both laying
Mine
and
laying.
keeping
Oh.
mines. Yeah, which
Yep,
is not
sorry.
a bad thing. Being able to clear up the ocean after you make it a death trap. So
Cool.
hopefully that'll work out. The procurement arm, which is the Acquisition Technology and Logistics Agency, has requested budget, which we should get word on at some stage in the future. I think it's maybe in April. Yeah. They've requested budget. Yeah, requested budget from April. They're also looking at doing unmanned aerial vehicles, which in the form of fighters, which is a little bit new. I mean, newish. We've had extensive use of drones for air-to-ground attack vehicles. They don't typically fly very fast. They don't really maneuver particularly well, but they're very difficult to counteract.
Because of the size?
This would be sort of pushing the technology along track a bit.
Okay.
And the last piece of news that I have is that police are searching for a man who threw a paper glider at Hiroshima Peace Memorial. At the Hiroshima Peace Memorial. So a security guard came across a paper glider, and they reviewed the footage and saw a man throwing a paper glider at the memorial. They currently, I don't think, know who that is, but they're searching for him so that they can, I assume, lay charges. The paper glider had written in sort of semi-legible text, Great Hiroshima Earthquake, 10.28, 5:18, which is very cryptic and makes me think that possibly the person who threw it is maybe has the potential of being unwell.
Yeah.
But if they do capture him or find him, he could be facing either up to half a year and or 100,000 yen fine, which, I mean, to me,
isn't really a lot of money.
Well, if it's just the fine, sure. Half a year in jail seems a bit severe for throwing a paper plane at a memorial. I do realize he broke the law. In Japan, it's illegal to
deface.
It's not defacing. It's disrespecting. It's disrespecting historic memorials.
He committed a slightly different sin. He's not wealthy. He's going to prison for the rest of his life.
Listen, Jay.
He's not rich. He's gonna go to hell, man.
Listen.
It doesn't really matter if you're rich in Japan. I don't think.
You are so jaded. You are green. That is fine. Just that's okay. But I don't disagree with you. But for now,
6 months for throwing a plane sounds like a serious case of not rich.
Right. Yeah.
That's fair. Okay. Despite it being jaded, it is fair. However, to me, it seems a little unfair that you'll face that jail time. But then again, I am, my background is different, and I come from a different sort of legal understanding.
I kind of think if, actually, I want to disagree with Yash. I think if he was rich, they'd probably also do it, just to make an example of him. Like, do you remember the executive of Mazda or whatever? I can't remember. Carlos, someone who smuggled himself out of Japan.
Oh yes. I think we spoke about this weeks ago. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know about the not being rich thing. That's more of a rest of the world problem than a Japan problem.
Although, with that said, I think that specific example goes into Yesh's favor, because there is no way that someone should have been able to do what he did without...
Get out of Japan.
Well, I mean, he hired American mercenaries to extract him from Japan.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, if you weren't a billionaire, it wouldn't be possible. I'm sure. But the authorities did try and get him, so I'm not sure I buy the case of the rich thing here. Anyway, that'll do it for the news, and let's talk about this fake Japanese movie that we watched.
Yes.
It was pretty Japanese, actually.
I mean, it was filmed in Los Angeles with the American cast, and there was scenery hung outside of the train windows that it was filmed on.
Were not a lot of the cast Japanese, or are they Japanese American?
Virtually none of them were Japanese. The kid of the Yakuza guy that came onto the train was half Japanese, but he was American, half Japanese.
Okay.
The guy that played his father was full-blood Japanese, but also American. And everyone else was American.
All right. So
Or English.
He was essentially an expert, right?
Yeah, I think he was a native speaker. His Japanese was pretty good. His son's was okayish. He said words a bit strongly. I just remember when he came onto the train and the attendant asked him for his ticket, he replied in a very bizarre manner. But anyway, let's talk about what this movie is. So this movie, I don't know, what kind of genre is it? I'm not really sure. It's kind of like, it's almost like a comedy, like an action comedy.
Yeah, I would call it a surrealist dark comedy, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of blood. There's no
Yeah.
gore or anything, though.
No.
I mean, it feels just like an action movie with Guy Ritchie / Quentin Tarantino elements in it. And we kind of spoke about how, like, every scene felt a little bit like a different movie was happening during it.
I mean, I would also add a healthy dash of Monty Python type surrealism to that as well. So just like some situations
Well,
that are...
They did a thing which reminded me of kind of the Borderlands games where, you zoom in on a character and, like, their name comes up in, like, text on the screen, introducing them, like, as the boss or whatever of the scene. At some point they did that to a water bottle.
Yes, that is also true.
Anyway, this movie is about a bullet train where a bunch of people kind of are invited or made to be in that situation by a mob boss. And it's the journey from Tokyo to Kyoto, and things just happen along the way. So, I don't know. I'm going to say, just without any spoilers, that it's not really like... It's like tangentially Japanese related, which is why we're reviewing it. But it's not very Japanesey. Most of the cast, all of the main cast, in fact, are not Japanese at all. And occasionally someone will speak some Japanese, and you'll see some Japanese signs. All the names have like a Japanese and English text thing going on, so that's nice. You can practice your katakana reading skills.
Yeah, it definitely has like the front of being Japanese, but then behind that is definitely not.
Yeah. So there's also a Brad Pitt movie. He's the quote-unquote main character of it. And who else is famous in this? Ryan Reynolds pops up as a cameo, right?
Yeah, there's a cameo. I mean, pretty much all of these actors are... Hiroyuki Sanada is famous. Karin Fukuhara is famous. Michael Shannon's famous. Sandra Bullock's famous.
Yeah.
It's basically like a... Like if they aren't occupying solid roles, there are cameos of people that are A-list or maybe B-list.
Was Matt Damon
actors.
in this? I can't remember.
No, but
Matt Damon wasn't. Channing Tatum was.
Channing
is the
Tatum.
person that
There
you're
you go.
thinking about,
There
I
you go.
think.
Yeah, there you go.
Is this a sex thing?
There you go. Right. It's a mid-budget sort of movie, given today's budgets of movies. It's $90 million.
Yeah.
The CGI was some of the worst I've ever seen.
But it suited the feel of the movie.
But yeah, it totally
Like
I totally bought it
cringy-
for what was happening in this movie.
Cringy, surreal, unbelievable. Yeah, it works.
The cinematography was some of the worst I've seen in a movie ever, I think. Like,
Yeah, there was a lot
the
of
camera
odd things
angles were
going on.
all like weirdly low. So everyone kind of looked fat in this movie. Or like just oddly
Yeah.
shaped. I don't know if that's because they were on this like train set and they couldn't, hoist the camera equipment properly or something.
So in some cases it was like a direct, like you could see it was a direct choice. They took the perspective of items that were low lying quite often.
Right.
And a lot of those items were the quote unquote Kirchhoff's items, like the bottle of water that keeps cropping
Yes,
up.
yeah. I mean, in those situations, I understand it, but just when two characters are talking to each other,
Yeah.
you still had
Yeah.
this.
And there's like a shaky cam element that they very randomly introduced. Like it, very often didn't quite make sense why you could tell that there was someone behind the camera stumbling all over the place.
Yeah. No. Some of it is just a bit weird. But it didn't really detract very much from the enjoyment of the movie, I think, because it
No.
was just such a weird movie.
In fact, I would state that it kind of adds to the surrealism because there are angles that are not normal, so you immediately feel odd. Like
Yes.
it's an odd shot, right? And then it adds to the weirdness of the. So they just lean hard into that weirdness.
So every character is kind of an archetype, which is, a very Japanese thing to do. And one of them in particular was supposed to be like the cute, like high school girl kind of person, although clearly she was like a 30-year-old woman, dressed in a like a schoolgirl's outfit. But what they did with her is they made her into like almost like a doll with the makeup and stuff she was wearing. So throughout the film, I kept thinking like she was wearing some sort of rubber mask. That's kind of how it looked to me most of the time. So they went with like very plasticky feel with her. And then other people,
She was 23.
Okay. She's not like 16 though. That's my point.
No.
Yeah.
No.
But yeah, I mean with all like the makeup and stuff, you couldn't really tell how actually old she was, I suppose. Which made it just weird looking. And then with Brad Pitt, they kind of made him like kind of greasy and gross most of the time. Which makes sense.
Kind of homeless looking.
Yeah, homeless looking, like a bum, right? And that's kind of what he's like a thief in the story. So he's going on this Tokyo bullet train to steal a briefcase. That's what he's been paid to do. And then, madness ensues. If you've watched the movie Snatch, it kind of has elements like that, where various sort of storylines eventually are just going to collide into one thing.
Yes.
I'm thinking particularly of the like car scene in Snatch, where everyone just like, collides literally in the street. But this one is very much like it, except everyone's colliding on their journey in the bullet train itself. Everything is just like that scene, but it happens again and again and again and again and again throughout this 2-hour movie. Is what this movie is. What did you enjoy about it, Yesh?
The absurdism and like the fact that none of it was predictable. At a point, I was so confused how this movie was going to go on, because we're about to come to a station, and like if this guy gets off the train, how does this movie exist if the main character gets off the train? But through the entire movie, he's been telling us that he has the worst luck. His luck is bad, etc., etc. And he gained the nickname Ladybug because his handler is trying to get him out of that rut by telling him he's actually good luck. But he's about to step off the train, and suddenly this Spanish guy in a white suit sees him, looks it down, and suddenly tries to stab him. Out of effing nowhere.
Like a Mexican drug dealer type or something.
So he's from a gang in Mexico.
Yeah.
It turns out that Brad Pitt was there to do a snatch. And while he was doing that, another person performed an assassination which killed most of the wedding. And this guy thinks that Brad Pitt or that other person, one of them, he doesn't know who, did the murders. So he's here to kill them both.
So this just goes like heavy spoilers from this point on. And
Yeah.
I'm just going to describe all the characters quickly. So we have 2 English assassins. Tangerine and Lemon.
Yeah.
They are brothers. Ostensibly. Must have been
Just
interest-
accept it. Just
must have,
accept it.
must
At
have been
a
an
point-
interesting family situation. But Lemon is obsessed with Thomas the Tank Engine. And
Yes, right.
he's built his life philosophy on the characterization of those people in that movie. And he's convinced that he can tell people's personalities
Based on the Thomas the Tank Engine stereotypes for personality.
exactly. And so if you're a diesel, that means you're a bad person or something.
Yeah, untrustworthy.
Untrustworthy. And he's got a bunch of stickers with the little characters.
Since we are talking in spoiler territory, I need to say, Lemon is also the only person in the entire fucking movie that takes one look at the schoolgirl that's actually a villain and just never buys her shit.
Yes.
She constantly, she tries 4 times to fool him with semi-plausible stories, and all 4 times he's like,
Nope.
"How are you doing that? That acting is impeccable." None of it sells
Yeah,
him.
so
He's
I mean,
not bought in for a second.
no, so he's actually like basically correct, right? You know, he has learned how to
100%
tell people people's personality traits from Thomas the Tank Engine.
Yeah.
And that's where the absurdist part comes in, because it sounds like such a dumb concept. He sounds almost childish when he uses these analogies involving Thomas.
Yeah.
But also, he's 100% correct 100% of the
Right.
time.
Yeah.
And his brother is more or less just a normal sort of assassin type, except he has a compulsion to steal things all the time.
Kleptomaniac, yeah.
And a terrible Peter Bear mustache.
Terrible Peter Bear. That's accurate.
Then we have the schoolgirl character, who is just a compulsive liar, and I think the daughter of the main boss.
She's also like a total sociopath. She's willing to like literally blow people up at a whim.
Yeah, children and whatever. She doesn't care.
Yeah,
Push the child off
she's supposed to be the Machiavellian character, the one that is the ultimate manipulator of everyone and everything that's going on in and around them.
And then there's this gang. So she's the daughter of the boss of this gang, who's called the White Death, who's a Russian guy who's taken over a Japanese gang.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, a quote-unquote Japanese gang, I'm doing air quotes here, because there aren't any Japanese people in this gang that we see on the train.
Yeah.
And but they were at some point. So he took over from the previous Japanese boss, and one of the people he kicked out of the gang has a son who's on the train.
Yes. Well, who Lemon and Tangerine actually bring onto the train to deliver back to him.
No. So
No,
that's
he's talking about Kimura.
Oh.
We're not talking about the White Death.
So he also has a son. So
White Death also has a son that's on the
Sorry.
train.
I missed the beat there.
So yeah, Lemon and Tangerine kidnap his son to bring him back to him.
Yes.
And then there's the other guy who was kicked out of the gang, who has a son on the train as well.
Yes.
And he also later shows up and gets on the train at a different stop.
That's
And
the
those are the
kind of
only
outfit.
two essentially Japanese people in the main cast. There's also the conductor, there's the
That's
Japanese
okay,
waitress as well, and so on and so forth.
Also, there's the Wasp or whatever her name is.
Wasp.
The Hornet.
The Hor-
Zazie
the Hornet.
Beats, yeah.
Right, oh yeah. So yeah, there's the Hornet, who's not a Japanese character, just in case you're confused about what Yesha's saying there. She is she's American? Sounds American, maybe? American
Unknown,
assassin.
but she's an assassin.
But the thing is, she uses worm slung venom
Yes.
as her way of killing people. That is a venomous snake from Southern Africa.
Yeah.
And in the movie's lore, it's instantaneously deadly. So
Within 30 seconds, you'll
within
be dead.
30 seconds, you start bleeding from your eyes, sort of thing. I mean, realistically, if you got bit by a worm slug in real life, you'd probably have enough time to drive yourself to a hospital and get an anti-serum or anti-venom serum.
Or they could just support you through it. You know, very often you actually don't even need anti-serum.
Yeah, I mean, it depends how
You
much.
just need-
It's
If you get the snake off, yeah.
what's it? A cytotoxin or a
It destroys your blood.
hemotoxin or something? Hemotoxin.
Hemotoxin.
So bad news, but probably not 30 seconds sort of deadly.
Yeah, I mean it is one of the most deadly that we've got on this side of the world. But it doesn't work the way that it works in the movies, obviously.
But anyway, so
we've always
she
had to
she
buy
she
into-
both has a worm slung, which she keeps in a snake cage, or like a cat cage. I don't know. And then she also has like a syringe full of the venom, which she uses to kill people.
Yes.
So she kills the White Death's son with it.
Yes.
And pins it on Brad Pitt's character because he has the worst luck and everyone kind of believes that. That's the only person that Lemon is fooled by initially, right? But it's just because of his bad luck that Lemon thinks he's up to no good when he comes to try and cooperate with him in the beginning. And they have like a funny fight scene where there's an old lady
But
trying to
at
shush
the end
them.
of that fight scene, Lemon does say, "I don't think it's him. That's not our man."
No, he does say that, but he still fights him for some reason. I don't know why.
Because they still need a patsy. If someone has to die, so they're happy to sacrifice him.
But fair enough. But yeah, anyway, and am I forgetting anyone?
God, the conductor is actually a character, and it's also Masioka, who played Hero from Heroes.
Oh, right. Right, that's where he's from. Yeah.
So like cameo things. Yeah, I mean, the only other person to maybe, yeah, I mean, for the beginning of the movie would be the sort of the cartel enforcer.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Whose wedding was pretty much annihilated by the Hornet.
So the Hornet kills everyone in this. Seemingly, she has unlimited supply of this venom as well.
Yes, like everyone is like vomiting blood everywhere.
I think it's implied
he
that
was the wolf.
The cake is what kills them,
the
right?
wolf.
So, yeah.
Yeah, the cake. She's the pastry maker in the.
Yes. So everyone dies at that wedding except for the wolf. The wolf doesn't even stop to change his bloody shirt. He comes from Mexico all the way to Tokyo, gets on the train, and starts trying to kill Brad Pitt's character, who he thinks is the person who did the poisoning.
Yeah.
And then Brad Pitt kills a lot of people in this movie, and mostly accidentally.
And traumatically, like he's like not happy about any of this as he's like ending these people's lives.
No, he's like a pacifist, just like guns, you know. So he doesn't want to fight or anything, but yeah. So I can't remember exactly how he kills the white wolf, but there's quite a lot of blood involved. And then he sort of dresses him up as if he's just drunk and sitting on like a couch.
It was that his suitcase was like armored, and the white wolf tried to throw his knife.
Oh, he had bounced off and stabbed him in the heart.
It just returned back to him.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so he kills the white wolf that way, and then there's a horrific scene where he kills what's her name, the assassin with the worm-slang venom.
Hornet.
The Hornet.
Oh, guys, I think I've just realized something, but I think Yesh mentioned this before, which is that there's a legend that the White Death always kills his victims with their own weapons.
With their own weapon, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
And throughout this whole thing, like the wolf gets killed with his own knife, the Hornet gets killed with her own poison, Tangerine gets killed with his own gun, and it kind of carries on along this kind of trail in the train.
Yeah.
Leaving everyone around, including like Prince, the quote unquote schoolgirl character, tends to like make items be explosive. So when people try to use them, they blow up, or they have a tendency of blowing up.
Yeah, I mean it's obviously her plan from the beginning to try and make her father kill her with her own gun, so it'll explode in his hand and kill him. I mean, she gets killed by a truck though, so it doesn't quite play out in all cases.
No.
Well, to be fair, the White Death is dead by that point.
That's also true. Yeah. But that's the Hornet scene is pretty, I don't know, traumatic, because she sort of stabs Brad through the hand with a needle. It kind of goes through his hand, and then he like rips out the syringe and injects her properly with it. And he steals her anti-venom, injects himself with it, and she kind of just melts. So that was a bit horrifying.
But it was also very funny for me because, you know, she reaches in for this antidote. He quickly snatches it away to use it himself. And then he looks and he's like, you don't have another one?
You don't have a spare?
What do you mean you don't? You didn't bring, you fucking idiot,
Yes.
as she's busy dying. He's like, why wouldn't you have put it?
I get you something to drink?
You want a towel, a blanket?
He's trying so hard to be like enlightened and peaceful.
If you like dark and macabre humor, it really works very well.
Yeah, I mean, the gang leader thing, it was just a bit weird. I don't think they got like a particularly convincing actor to play this like Yakuza boss, for my taste.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to throw shade at Hiroyuki Sanada. He's
No,
been
the
in a lot
No,
of
no, no.
That's
Sonata
the-
was fine.
the
Sonata
Russian
was
dude.
fine.
I don't know who that
the
was.
Russian dude. Oh, yeah, Michael Shannon, the White Death. Yeah.
Michael Shannon.
The
Yeah.
White Death.
Yeah.
It gets
I think-
because when we say like the Yakuza leader, yes, he is actually the Yakuza leader, but he's not Yakuza at all, you know,
Yeah.
in terms of.
So allow me to just weigh in on why I think he comes off as disappointing. Because when it comes time for the legendary monologue, the monologue leads up to somebody took my toy away, now no one gets to have toys.
Right.
Yeah.
The entire reasoning behind why all of this is happening is so benign and boring that it kind of feels like someone wrote the greatest story ever, and then it ends with a guy going out to get a pack of cigarettes.
I mean, but it doesn't really matter. I mean,
I mean, the payoff does feel like it was a total cop-out.
it kind of to me it really feels more like the daughter character is the one who's actually orchestrating things. You know.
Which kind of mirrors the book this was actually based on.
Right. So I mean, and she even says at the end, "I am the White Death," before she gets hit by a tangerine truck. And yeah,
Because her whole plan was to kill him and take over his organization.
exactly. So it felt like kind of she was really doing the manipulating there.
But she did nothing for anything except the son. That was the only part she did. He literally hired the Hornet to be on the train, hired the Steel. He hired Tangerine and Orange.
Which technically meant that he hired them to get his son on the train as well.
But he also hired Hornet to kill his son
Yeah.
and steal the money. He hired this guy to steal the money. He put them all there, and he got not the bull. What was the Mexican guy?
Wolf.
The wolf. He also gave the wolf the information about who did it and which train they were. So he put everyone on the train with an attempt to get them to all kill each other, which was epic. And then it turns out the reason why he's doing this is because someone killed his wife some time ago, and he's blamed everyone except himself.
Well, I mean, but the Hornet was the one who essentially killed the surgeon that would have saved his wife or something.
Yes.
Okay,
So
but
that
like,
sort of
there's no
explains
saying
why
that
she was
that
there. At, at the very
surgeon
least.
would have definitely done it. Just
And
that
then-
the best wasn't available.
Well, and
It was
then
like
Tangerine
somehow-
and Lemon failed him somehow. I can't remember exactly. So that's why they were there.
Tangerine and Orange
No, from
committed
the
such a
Bolivian-
giant massacre at the Bolivian thing that the White Death was called to go out to deal with it personally,
Yeah.
which means his wife was left alone to go save their son.
Yes.
There were a lot of flashbacks in this thing. And I mean, Ladybug is literally just there because he's got the shit luck of having been called in as the substitute.
But yeah, then it
father.
turns out our main character, and the whole reason this whole thing doesn't work, is the fact that Brad Pitt's character is there as a substitute, because Ryan Reynolds' character is sick that day.
Yep.
Had like a stomach problem, something like that.
He had a stomach problem.
So he couldn't be on the train to steal the briefcase.
But see, I feel like this is where this movie goes hyper Japanese. Because a lot of this movie talks about luck, but I feel like it means karma.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
go on.
Sorry. I just think that a lot of this was meant to be like a 5D, the spirits and the courts and everything. And if everything had gone correct, then his plan would have been perfect. But because Brad Pitt was in, and Brad Pitt's particular spiritual inclination is bad luck and everyone around him dies, everything fell apart on him because the puzzle pieces were not correct.
I'm not sure it's like karma per se. I think it's more like fate.
Fate.
Maybe.
So that's kind of what I mean, because the Japanese system involves your karma allows you to affect your fate.
Yes, but
the
I mean, your
idea that
karma's
there are,
like
like,
your base starting point in life.
I
you know?
understand.
Yeah.
But the idea is that the spirit world will alter fate to give you your comeuppance
Yes,
for your karma.
you're right. And there's a kind of like a oddly beautiful scene in this movie where the father of the Yakuza guy who's first on the train is giving like this whole speech about the whole ladybug thing. And he's like
That he bears all
backlit
of
by
that
the
luck.
sun, and there's this beautiful scenery going behind him, and just wonderful cinematography in that scene. They got that right.
Also, love
And
that Ladybug is so not interested in this talk. He's like,
He
"Well,
was
Exactly,
trying
yes.
to dodge it.
no,
He was trying to dodge it.
and then it's just countermined by the whole thing. He doesn't want to have the talk in the first place. When the guy finishes talking, he decides not to do anything the guy wants to do. People start talking over the guy and having a fight just directly after he's finished talking. It's kind of wonderful.
Mm.
yeah, it is."
But I did genuinely get the feeling that if everything had gone according to the way the White Death set it up, he would have won. He would have got his ultimate revenge. But because Brad Pitt came in, Brad Pitt's character fucks with luck, apparently. And his daughter also fucks with luck. The White Death's daughter having this perpetual good luck. And then the movie pays that off a lot. In fact, for me, the central conceit of this movie was, when was the bitch gonna die? Why is she not dead yet? I was so angry. I was frothing when Tangerine finally figures out who it is, because his brother left a sticker on it. And I was like, yes! And then they fucking ruin it just as it's about to happen. And I was so angry.
So the reason she died, if you follow the themes of the thing, is she would never die until she attacked someone. That's basically what it was. So while she's pretending to be this innocent schoolgirl kind of character, she would be perfectly lucky the whole time and be fine. The moment she said, "I'm the White Death," and aimed a gun at someone was the exact moment she died. That's when luck decided to desert her, because it wasn't interested in that.
As a sidebar, it was very amusing watching this next to Yesh. It was great. Just watching how upset you were getting.
I was having a great old fun time with every other character I was laughing about.
At some
It's
stage, you
only
just
her. Yes, yeah. When Tangerine and Brad Pitt's character have their little fight, and Brad Pitt's literally doing the right thing. He's trying to protect a girl from someone he knows is a bad guy. He knows this guy is a bad guy. So he's doing the right thing, but he's also doing the worst thing possible. And she's just manipulate, and I was so angry because it was the final payoff of the brothers' relationship. The fact that that little sticker was there felt so karmically, perfect. The entire universe aligned so that her fucking plan wouldn't work for once. For once she was gonna get something. And then it didn't happen. And I was like, God, movie!
Why do you do this to you?
But you see that's her luck and Brad Pitt's luck getting entwined,
clashing with each other. But see, she'd already had her luck pay off 3 separate times before that. So I was like, oh, we've done it 3 times. Rule of 3
but going
in
back
comedy.
to the fate thing, right? And if that had played out differently, then she wouldn't have been killed by a tangerine truck.
Also true. Yes. Yeah. But in the moment, in the movie,
Yes, yeah, sure.
It felt like her luck was altering the writer's room perspective.
Sure. Honestly, to me, it almost felt like there wasn't much of a writer's room. It was just like a series of the scenes that were strung together, and then someone decided to put a plot.
Did it feel
to it.
like somebody had some dice with character does X, and then they just kept rolling the dice and making that happen?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, no, to be fair, there was definitely some working back from endpoints to have things make sense.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of foreshadowing and gimmicks and MacGuffins and Kirchhoffs and all of the things. There were so many. There was just a count in the lower window for every time there's a Kirchhoff's gun or a MacGuffin.
Occasionally they did a flashback to make things make sense.
Yeah.
And one of them was
the fucking water bottle
from the
one.
water bottle's perspective, and it just shows that some girl bought this at the station, and then it just goes through the whole train journey from the water bottle's perspective of all the major scenes it was in, and it actually made things make more sense.
This water bottle had a very interesting existence. It was actually compelling.
Yes. And there was also the boomslang's perspective, the snake that just kind of was in the train throughout the movie.
Yeah, just making its way to was it either the front or the back that it was slithering to?
It was going towards the front.
Back to the front, yeah.
Through the whole movie, it's just slowly making its way. At one stage, it gets stuck into a toilet.
Yes.
It's this really slow drawn out process of the snake making its way to the front, and then it's eventually at the front.
And
yeah.
the movie wants to make you convinced it's going to bite the schoolgirl character
Yeah,
at some point.
Yeah, I also got that feeling.
But then it bites, Brad Pitt because he's unlucky.
I just say, for a movie filled with absurdist conceit, like the whole movie is absurdist, is it funny to you guys that the only part I can't buy still, although there's two parts I can't buy, I don't want to talk about the second one yet. The only part that I really can't buy is that a guy caught onto the back end of a bullet train and punched his way in.
I mean,
that's not
unbelievable. It's not the most unbelievable thing, but it is unbelievable.
The most unbelievable thing is the thing that happens at the end of the movie. But apart from that,
trying to punch your way through windshield glass of a normal car will just have every bone in your hand pulverized.
Yeah.
And a bullet train in particular has a very reinforced window.
Bullet train, that's just not going to happen. But yeah. I mean, it is not the most unbelievable thing in the movie, but it is.
But I do think
how absurd the movie is.
I do think that was the first moment in that movie where all of us just burst out laughing.
Yeah.
Because previously there had been some absurdism in the movie prior to that, but never did all three of us just burst out laughing wildly. When that happened, all of us lost it. We couldn't stay in the movie anymore.
I don't know. When I first saw the wolf and how gauche and tacky he was, I think I couldn't stop myself from laughing. They just do the characterization. The right word I'm looking for. Caricaturization.
And then obviously Yash is talking about the end of the movie where like the entire bullet train just flies off the edge of a bridge at full speed.
Yeah. And people survive. In fact, multiple people survive.
Yes.
I was saying the train has to be going backwards because forwards there's the end of the line. It can't go this way. And then it turns out, no, they were going forwards. The end of the line was just a little bit further on.
Yes.
So the train reaches the end of the line and flies off the fucking tracks. And then falls down a cliff.
And the whole animation of it is just like a video game cutscene, kind of bad CGI.
Yeah. That is
so.
I mean, definitely in that line, right? Like it feels like a Call of Duty cutscene.
Exactly.
But that was definitely intended for 3D audiences. When you get that weird bad CGI, it's meant for 3D.
No, I'm sure there's a reason. Also, the budget wasn't super high, so maybe you can forgive some of that. But it was fine. It doesn't matter because it's not what the movie's really like about. It just seeing like the 3D avatar of Brad Pitt kind of floating in the middle of the train as it's disintegrating around him.
And did you guys catch that was kind of a flashback scene in its own right? Not like in a literal, we are going back in time and seeing what happened in the past. But Brad Pitt traveled backwards through the train and we got the story of all of the items that were left behind.
Yes, yeah.
As he traveled backwards through the train.
Yeah, it was.
It was a reference to everything that had happened in the movie and then the crash happened. And literally no one dies, everyone is fine.
Despite them going to
we never find out what happens to the conductor.
Yeah, we don't but the conductor looks like he got off.
Maybe he got off.
There was a point in time when literally every ticket was bought on the train. And it's only people who aren't supposed to be there left.
But it is funny every time that like Brad Pitt's character keeps just trying to get off the train, and every time he does, there's always something that drags him back onto the train, and it's just this hilarious like continual desire to go visit a temple.
Yes.
It doesn't matter what temple. Outside that door, he knows there's going to be a temple. And
he just wants to ask some god, whatever god, any god he can find, why he's so unlucky. But I would give this movie like 7 out of 10. It would be higher, but I think the quality and some of the tone doesn't like quite mesh throughout the movie. Something like Snatch, something like Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. It's like they're kind of perfect movies.
Yeah.
Because it maintains like that English grunge kind of fun adventure
also,
throughout.
In those movies, it feels like if you cut out any 1 minute of it, you'll cut out a part of the story.
Yes.
In this one, it definitely feels like you could cut out some bits, and you wouldn't lose too much.
It could definitely be streamlined and still be just as enjoyable. The comedy in this is great.
This was a 7 out of 10 as well. I will say from a quality perspective, from like just looking at the movie perspective, probably more of a 6, but I was laughing and enjoying myself, so I'm gonna give it
Yeah.
a 7.
I think it's a fun movie. I think you should go out and watch it. At least to say that you have watched it. I also think that it might, I'm not saying it definitely will, but I think it might have the possibility of being a cult classic.
I would say it would definitely be, but for the quality, right?
Well, yeah, but I mean, if we think about some of the cult classics that have happened in the past,
Sure, it's not like clear cut sort of
it's
thing.
not, yeah, it's not like a prohibitive thing. So it's got the potential.
What was that?
It's
What
not
is
a
that little short movie made about the '80s cop with the Triceracop guy? And they were like
I'm sorry.
fighting Nazis.
I vaguely recall this, but I not enough in detail for me to follow.
Like some
This
some
feels
guy
like a
in
university
some guy in
thing.
like Sweden or whatever made like a movie by himself, and
Yeah.
he did it in like this style of like the '80s.
Yeah.
And it just sort of reminds me of that kind of it's that kind of quality throughout. I mean that's like maybe like a 20-minute kind of little movie, but you know like the CGI that was done with like the dinosaurs in that movie and the various stuff that happens in that is about the same as this. And I think that's really the only downside of this and maybe they could have edited some things a little bit better.
Yeah. I mean, if you want like top-notch action cinematography, not gonna
Yeah.
have a good time.
It's not
If you
Marvel.
want- even
Yeah.
if you want like just a straight up action movie, there are better offerings everywhere around. If you want like a wild, sort of absurdist, dark, comedic venture through someone's brain, this is great.
Do you think there was some weird casting in this?
No, I think that they leaned in hard with a lot of cameos. Do you mean that you feel like there are other actors that would have played the characters better?
I'm not necessarily sure what I mean. For one thing, I feel like a train in Japan should have more Japanese people on it.
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, like that's one of the absurd things is that they're like a whole 2.5 Japanese people, literally.
Right,
Oh,
yeah.
Japanese people on this
In the
page,
movie,
I
yeah.
agree. Because there is a female Japanese.
Even the old lady who tells them to shush is like an old white lady.
Yes. Everyone's speaking English here. Or
Pretty
Russian.
much, yeah.
It's one of the two.
Or Russian, yes.
Or a little bit Spanish, but only a little.
Yeah.
There was a fair bit of Japanese.
I mean, there was some Japanese text on the screen. You know, the announcements.
No, they were
and
talking
such.
Japanese as well.
I feel like they were equal parts Russian
Well,
and Japanese.
but the
Equal parts Russian and Japanese, yeah.
Yakuza guy and his son were speaking Japanese to each other because they were Japanese. Well, what?
And also at the
Koji was
hospital.
half Japanese or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I mean, some Japanese-looking people.
I just feel
anyway.
like lengthwise, those scenes were not very long. Because otherwise, we would have switched to subtitles.
Yeah, because I think it's because they're American and they couldn't, speak Japanese.
By the way,
right?
for anyone listening, if you think that Chris is sitting and translating for us like a good buddy, you would be sorely mistaken. This guy does not give any fucks.
There
He's like,
wasn't
"Sorry,
anything
guys,
important being
you
said.
You should learn the language."
Yeah.
So, there you go.
Like, yeah, turned off the subtitles. He could turn it on at any point.
Yeah. It's like Yesh would be like, "Guys, I think we need subtitles," and Chris would be like, "No, we're fine."
I mean, I would have appreciated them for the Russian scenes.
I literally said it about 4 times. I think we should turn subtitles on to get "No, we're fine" as a response.
It didn't matter. It really didn't matter.
No, I agree. I don't think any like all of those scenes were exactly what you thought they would be. Like
Exactly.
like, you know,
Like
father
they were
feels
just like,
guilty,
"Oh, I'm
his
coming to
son
the
in
train,"
hospital.
was the one saying. Blah blah blah, sort of nonsense.
Yeah, you know, scary Russian man says scary Russian
thing.
things to his subordinates. like you don't really need a translation for it. You understand the context immediately.
And like scary Russian man's subordinates were oddly like American or English
Yes.
as well.
And also very self-aware as to what was about to happen to them.
Right? Yes.
And yet, like that, I feel bad for that one guy who's just like, "No, let's not open the case. He always gets us to do this. Fuck that. This is dangerous." And the other guy's like, "What, are you going to tell him no?" And he's like, "Yes, let's tell him no." And then they open the case and they all have a bad day. Spoilers.
But I think what I mean is maybe it's the director who maybe he wasn't super experienced, but he didn't quite get like maybe the best scene out of a lot of the actors. Maybe that's what it was. It just
He
felt
did
like
John Wick, by the way. This is the same director. David Leitch is an American filmmaker, actor, stunt performer, and stunt coordinator who made his directorial debut in 2014.
David Lynch. Was this a David Lynch movie?
Leitch, David Leitch.
Okay.
And he did John Wick with Chad Stahelski.
Which John Wick? The original? Or... Okay.
2014. So,
well,
yeah.
I mean, it makes sense. A lot of the stuff starts to make more sense now.
I mean, he also
Also
did
did
Atomic,
Deadpool too.
He also did Atomic Blonde, which kind of starts to make sense, the progression of his direction.
I don't know what it is then. It's just like everything felt slightly fake.
Yeah.
Like the acting felt a little bit stilted at times as well. Except maybe for Brad Pitt's character and for Lemon and Tangerine, they were great.
I mean,
every other actor felt very much like they were kind of like delivering it via Zoom, you know?
Yeah.
Or maybe most of it was just green screen and they weren't really talking to each other or something.
I can see that. For me, the thing that stands out most is the fact that they're just so cheesy caricature.
Or maybe it was done under like heavy COVID conditions and people all had to be like
almost definitely
very far away from each other.
I suspect this is a big element of it. Thinking about how locked down Japan has been, right?
Yeah.
This basically answers the question as to why was this not in Japan?
No, yeah, of course. Also, it would just be expensive to, rent a Shinkansen to film a movie, and I'm sure.
Well, they wouldn't need to. They'd like do all of their shots on the outside and then have a set for the inside, like they did basically.
It's so strange though that they didn't do some of that, because surely you could have just, had those.
Hired a team in Tokyo that could then do the footage for you.
Yeah, exactly. I think some things were filmed in Japan.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
maybe
I feel like
some exterior shots.
Movies generally don't work that way. Like people will not there's a lot of outsourcing, but to that degree where you're like, we're not going to be able to step foot in that country regardless.
Yeah.
But we're going to hire a group to do this for us. Kind of doesn't feel like it happens a lot in film. I might be wrong.
There are some shots of Fuji and stuff like that. That's all I'm talking about.
Those shots of Fuji do not look like Fuji.
They kind of look a bit CGI.
In the background.
But they were literally, some of them were literally printed on boards and hung outside the set windows. Yeah. But the one thing that in the beginning when he's walking into the station, absolutely none of that feels like Japan. That's just those were just not Japanese buildings or a Japanese street or a Japanese train station he was walking into.
Some of the ones that some of the characters stepped out on did feel for me like some of the ones that I've been in that are not in the city, they're in like a lot of the country.
Yeah.
But I agree, they don't really have that same. They're not like.
Exactly. I think some of them kind of felt like a New York subway, a little bit. That had been dramatically cleaned up for the shot, but still a New York kind of vibe.
Correct me if I'm not mistaken. I've never been on a Shinkansen, but they make an awful lot of stops for a Shinkansen. I would have thought Shinkansen.
But you do get versions of it. You get like the direct one, which is the most expensive one, and then you get ones that do stop.
Really?
Probably not as many stops as they stopped at for this.
How many stops do they have? Like
7, 8, something like that.
Yeah, I would say in that ballpark. That's a lot of stops for me in my mind.
But I mean, some of them were just like when it was like central Tokyo, out of Tokyo, Nagoya, so on and so forth. That definitely they would stop for most of those things. Yeah, that wasn't super unrealistic. I just do you know you'll hear it in anime, like the sounds that trains make and such in Japan is very distinct because they have those sounds for like blind and deaf people, and like the markings on the floor and such.
Yes, and the tweeting of the birds at the robots as well is also very distinct.
Yes, yeah, and that was kind of missing from it.
Yeah, I didn't get the nostalgia that I often feel like there were can't remember what I was watching, but there's something in Japan where it had all those sounds, and there's just massive nostalgia for the place whenever you hear that.
Yeah. And also all of the other areas in the world felt very much like California. You know, even like the color of the soil and the sky was, you know,
I mean,
definitely
the
not.
fact that they were tangerines.
Well, I mean, the truck did say Mikan, which I guess you can translate as tangerine. I mean, it's more of a Satsuma really than a tangerine, but you know, fair enough. I think in the Japanese text when they did his name, it did say Mikan.
Okay.
Yeah, lemon and Mikan was the Japanese text.
There are a series of books associated with this that are actually Japanese. The book specifically that was adapted to this film, and I think it was quite heavily adapted, is called Maria Beetle. Sorry.
Okay.
And it's the second in the trilogy that the author wrote.
I mean, this would make a great anime.
Yeah.
It really would. I kind of hope that they do make like a little anime movie of it or something now.
Maybe in a little bit of like a Samurai Champlooist kind of format, at least for the action.
Okay. I think that'll just about do it though.
Yeah.
Do you think this will get a sequel?
Likely.
I struggle to see them getting.
I'm just looking at box
I mean, they
office.
killed a lot of their actors, but
That's the problem.
I struggle seeing them getting everyone together, and I also like this works as a once-off because you don't need a continuous storyline, right? Like I don't need to now know what's going on in Ladybug's life.
Right.
This was just like a cool fever dream ride, which I tend to be a fan of, so I enjoyed it, and I don't need it to continue into a sequel at all.
I mean, it's been in theaters now for 3 months. So it's probably made most of the money it's going to make. But having said that, it's made like 3 times or more the money back that it cost to make. So that's pretty good.
Yeah.
So there might be a sequel.
Yeah.
Anyway, that'll do us for us today. Thanks for listening, folks. Thanks,
Yeah,
Yesh. Thanks, Dylan.
Thank you.
Ciao for now.
Everyone, cheers.
Bye.